I didn't know Betrayal could wear a three-piece suit and smile at you like a friend. That's how it started, not with an argument, not with a scandal, but with a handshake that felt just a little too firm. My name's Eli Grant, senior brand strategist at one of New York's top marketing firms, the Lumen Group. I've built my reputation from the ground up. No shortcuts, no dirty deals, just work that speaks louder than the noise. My clients trust me because I deliver. I'm the guy who turns forgotten startups into headlines. And in this industry, reputation isn't just currency, it's oxygen. Enter Derek Cole, my so-called partner. Sharp jawline, silk tongue, always the loudest laugh in the room. Everyone loved him. Clients, execs, interns who mistook his charm for mentorship. And I'll admit, I did too. When we first teamed up, it was like creative lightning. He handled the schmoozing, I handled the strategy. Together, we were unstoppable. At least, that's what I thought. Derek had this way of making everyone feel like they were in on something special. He'd clap you on the shoulder, grin that confident grin, and say things like, "We're a team, Eli, your brain, my charisma, our empire." It sounded good. Too good. Looking back, I realize now how perfectly rehearsed it all was. We'd just landed the Holden Group, a multimillion-dollar luxury client, the kind of deal that changes careers. I'd spent months building that pitch deck, sleeping in the office, missing family dinners, all to make sure it was airtight. Derek was right there beside me, hyping me up, calling me the genius behind the brand. And yet, something small, almost insignificant, started to gnaw at me. It was during a client dinner. The Holden CEO leaned across the table, swirling his wine, and said, "Derek tells me you're taking a step back from this project?" I blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" Derek jumped in before I could speak. "Just for a bit," he said smoothly. "Eli's got a lot on his plate. I'll make sure things stay on track." Everyone laughed. The moment passed. But something in my gut twisted. That night, as I watched Derek toast with my client, my glass stayed untouched. Because in that instant, I realized something was off. And the worst part? I couldn't tell if I was being paranoid, or if my partner had just taken the first step towards stealing everything I'd built. They say you never notice the cracks until the light hits them just right. For weeks after that dinner, I told myself it was nothing. Just a misunderstanding. Derek was impulsive, charming to a fault, but he'd never cross me. Not him. At least, that's what I kept repeating. The first red flag came wrapped in politeness. A few days later, Derek forwarded me an email thread with the Holden Group. I skimmed through, then stopped cold at a line that didn't belong. Per our discussion with Derek. Discussion. There wasn't supposed to be one without me. I checked the timestamp, 9:42 p.m., the same night I was home finalizing the presentation slides. He hadn't mentioned a meeting. When I asked him about it the next morning, he brushed it off with that trademark grin. "Oh, that. Just a quick chat over drinks. You were wiped, man. I didn't want to bother you." His voice was easy, casual. But my chest tightened anyway. Then there were the little things, subtle shifts in how people looked at me. The interns stopped coming to me with their questions. They went straight to Derek. My name wasn't CC'd on follow-up emails I should have been looped in on. Clients who used to greet me first now turned to him, like he was the heartbeat of every project. And Derek. He was glowing. Suddenly he was staying late, just wrapping things up. Every time I walked past his office, he'd click his laptop shut a little too quickly. It got under my skin. One night, I doubled back after hours, told myself I'd left my wallet. Derek's door was half open, and I heard him laughing on a call. Yeah, don't worry about Eli. He's more the background type." My heart dropped. I didn't step in. I didn't confront him. I just stood there, listening to my so-called partner erase me one word at a time. Still, I wanted to believe it was stress, ambition, something explainable. You don't build trust like ours and throw it away overnight. The next morning, He acted like nothing happened. He brought me coffee, cracked jokes, even patted my shoulder during a client meeting like we were still in sync. But now every smile felt calculated. Every compliment. A cover. That's when I started keeping notes. Emails. Timestamps. Messages. Not because I wanted revenge. Not yet, but because deep down, I knew I was being rewritten out of my own story. And I wasn't about to let that happen quietly. Every betrayal starts as a whisper. Mine came in the form of a calendar notification I was never supposed to see. Holden Group. Final contract review. Private. Private. It was 7 a.m., and Derek's name was listed as the sole attendee. No invite for me. No CC. Just him, and my client. I stared at the screen for a long minute, that same dull ache spreading through my chest. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe he meant to loop me in later. My brain scrambled for excuses, but my gut had already stopped believing in them. By noon, curiosity overpowered hope. I walked into the Holden offices, badge clipped, smile tight. The receptionist looked surprised. "Oh, Mr. Cole said you were off this account." My throat went dry. "Off the account?" She blinked. "He said you were transitioning out. He even introduced your replacement last week." I couldn't feel my hands. Upstairs, I found the glass conference room. Through it, I saw Derek, tailored suit, perfect posture, shaking hands with the Holden CEO over a stack of papers I had written. The pitch deck, the brand guide, the taglines, all mine. My fingerprints were all over that project. And he was signing it alone. When he caught sight of me through the glass, there was a flicker, half surprise, half guilt. Then he smiled, cool and practiced, as if to say, "Relax, Eli. It's business." I didn't remember walking back to my car. All I remember is gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white, staring at the skyline we used to dream about conquering together. Later that evening, I got the email. "Eli. After some internal discussion, the Holden Group has decided to move forward under Derek Cole's direct management. We appreciate your early contributions." No signature. Just corporate erasure, efficient and final. I sat in my dark apartment, reading those words again and again until they blurred. Every version of me that believed in teamwork, loyalty, partnership, they all shattered that night. Derek hadn't just stolen my client. He'd stolen the narrative, my reputation, my credibility, my future inside Lumen. And he'd done it so smoothly that people were already rewriting the story. Eli's slowing down, Derek's taking charge. That's how it happens in this world. Reputation doesn't die with a scandal. It dies with silence. And as I stared at my reflection in the black screen of my laptop, I made myself a promise. If Derek wanted to play power games, I'd show him what real strategy looked like. The heartbreak would fade. The fury wouldn't. And in that quiet, hollow moment, I stopped being his partner and started becoming his reckoning. The night Derek stole my client, something in me broke. Not loudly, but like a quiet fracture under too much weight. For 3 days, I didn't go to work. My phone buzzed with messages I didn't read, calls I didn't answer. My apartment felt like a graveyard. Old takeout boxes, glowing monitors, the scent of burnt coffee and exhaustion. I replayed every moment between us, every handshake, every shared joke, every "we're in this together, Eli." What a joke. I told myself to move on, to be the bigger person. But how do you move on when someone's walking around wearing your name like a trophy? On the 4th day, I dragged myself back to the office. My badge still worked. Small mercy. Lumen's glass walls gleamed, full of people too busy to notice I'd been erased. Derek's name was already on the new client board. Executive lead, the Holden Group. My space was cleared out, files reassigned. It felt like walking through my own obituary. Then, as I passed the conference room, I heard his voice. Confident, smooth, mine. "Success is about perception," Derek was saying to a group of interns. "It's not what you do, It's who they think did it. They laughed. He laughed. And that was the moment. Something clicked. Clean and cold. It wasn't anger this time. It was clarity. All my years of playing fair, of staying loyal, of letting other people take the spotlight while I built the substance behind it, that ended in that conference room. If Derek believed success was perception, then perception would be the weapon that undid him. That night, I opened my old project archives. Every file, every revision, every late-night note, mine. Every time-stamped email proving I built the Holden campaign before he ever pitched it. I found photos from brainstorming sessions, my handwriting on the whiteboard, my slide drafts saved under my cloud ID. Piece by piece, I rebuilt my truth. And with every file I dragged into the new folder labeled #powerplay, my chest felt lighter. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming reality. About making sure the world saw what really happened, who really earned the credit, and who just smiled his way into the spotlight. As dawn crept through my window, I sat back in my chair, staring at the growing folder of evidence. Derek had taken my client, my pride, my peace. But he forgot the one thing that made me dangerous. I build narratives for a living. And now, I was going to build one that would destroy him. I swore it then. I wouldn't rest until his empire of lies burned under the weight of the truth. Revenge isn't fireworks. It's a chess match played with patience, paperwork, and the perfect lie at the perfect time. I built my plan the way I'd build a brand. Research, positioning, amplification. I cataloged everything, emails with timestamps, cloud file histories, draft names, internal Slack threads, photo timestamps from brainstorming nights, even the coffee receipt from the diner where Derek and I plotted headlines. I exported metadata, saved server logs, and printed the critical pages until my desk looked like a legal brief. Evidence is a language Derek didn't speak. Numbers and timestamps were their own kind of mercy. Power isn't solo, it's social proof. I quietly reached out to two people Derek assumed were loyal to him. Maya, the junior creative who'd idolized him, and Ramon, an old client relations manager who'd seen Derek's charm flip into entitlement. I didn't accuse. I asked questions. I shared innocuous observations and watched their faces change. They remembered small things, a draft Derek had found on his thumb drive, an offhand comment about taking the lead before the Holden meeting. They agreed to keep their ears open and, crucially, to trust me if I needed them. If Derek had weaponized perception, I'd weaponize context. I started a quiet narrative campaign where facts were the seeds and timing was the soil. I began by planting subtle reminders of my authorship. A LinkedIn post about creative process with a photo that had my whiteboard scroll, a tasteful tweet thread summarizing branding principles and linking to an archived blog post with the original Holden research. Nothing accusatory, just reminders that I existed and had been working. He loved being seen as the closer, the face. So I fed him small victories that made him bolder. I leaked a rumor, carefully, that Lumen's leadership was considering promoting him to a new role. He took it and ran, publicly congratulating himself in front of clients. He also made mistakes. Sloppy emails sent to the wrong lists, a bragging voicemail to an intern that was never meant to be forwarded. Those slips were my traps, not out of malice but of design. Give the arrogant enough rope. I consulted a lawyer friend under the guise of career advice. When she suggested subpoena-able records and formal complaint pathways if needed, I smiled and kept that file ready. I wasn't going to rush. I was going to make each move so obvious in hindsight that no one could claim coincidence. Every day I moved like a quieter tide, collecting, connecting, arranging. I practiced calm in meetings, answered Derek's jabs with a smile, and watched him grow careless. He still laughed at me in the hallway. He still toasted to teamwork. He still thought the game was his to win. But the pieces were set. The interns who idolized him now whispered to me in the copy room. The client who had been steered by Derek had a slight hesitation when I sent a follow-up recap. The email logs I'd harvested sat in a secure folder named #powerplay. Immutable, undeniable. Night after night I reviewed the map I'd drawn. Who would speak, when the leak would look organic, when the company would be forced to act. And as I closed my laptop that evening, I realized the last advantage belonged to me: timing. Because when the truth dropped, it wouldn't be messy. It would be surgical. Something big was coming. I chose a weekday mid-morning, when the office hummed and every eye was reachable. The Holden execs were visiting Lumen for a strategy check. Derek had invited them to our main boardroom to celebrate the transition. He strutted in like a king, palm pressed to the Hall of Clients plaque, smiling for cameras and for the people who now fed him praise. I walked in behind him carrying a slim folder and a calm that felt foreign in my bones. The room quieted when I closed the door. Derek offered a jaunty, "Eli, glad you could join," like I'd been invited. No one knew what was coming, except me, Maya, Ramon, and 2 interns who'd agreed to be honest. I started with the timeline. Soft voice, precise facts. On March 2nd at 10:14 p.m., the draft Holden deck was saved under my cloud ID. Metadata shows edits through 3 a.m. March 4th. I slid a printout toward the Holden CEO. He looked, really looked, at the headers, at the file path, at the revision stamps. Derek's smile faltered. Maya spoke next. She described a late-night brainstorm where Derek found a flash drive with the campaign. Ramon produced an email thread where Derek had introduced himself as taking the lead, weeks before he'd told anyone. The interns, hands trembling, played a voicemail Derek had left, a bragging off-mic confession that he'd closed it without telling me. The room listened like it was a confession in slow motion. Then I opened my laptop and let the server logs play. One by one, the artifacts, Slack messages where Derek redirected threads, a forwarded calendar invite with a time changed after my reply, a scanned receipt showing Derek paying for a private thank you dinner with the Holden account execs the week before the final review. Each piece was small, routine even, but together they formed a mosaic of theft. Derek tried to speak. He fumbled for charm. "Eli, corporate politics," he began. The Holden CEO cut him off, voice flat. "This isn't politics. This is deception." A long hush followed, the kind that makes air heavy. Word spread like wildfire. PR drafted statements. HR opened an investigation. Holden paused payments pending clarity. Lumen's leadership convened behind closed doors. Derek's allies shrank into silence. His phone stopped lighting up. But the real punishment was quieter. The clients who once toasted his name no longer reached across the table. The interns who'd idolized him looked at him like someone who'd lied about being a hero. Colleagues who'd once mirrored his laugh now avoided his gaze. He'd built a persona on being the face, and now that face was cracked and flaking. He left the building that afternoon under a cold rain. No escort, no triumph. His tie askew, shoulders hunched, he disappeared into a city that no longer applauded him. His empire of shimmer had no shelter against the slow, methodical unspooling of truth. I stayed in the boardroom until the chair warmed beneath me. The sound of printers, soft phones, and distant footsteps stitched the silence into something like peace. I thought of the handshake that started it all. Firm, smiling, and wrong. The room was still when I closed my laptop. Across from me, the client plaque caught the pale light. The applause had been for truth, not for me. For a moment, all I felt was the small, sharp absence where trust used to be. Then the silence held. Heavy, perfect, final. 3 months after Derek's fall, his name no longer echoed through the Lumen offices. His glass-walled corner office was empty, the frosted letters stripped from the door, replaced by a blank space that seemed to hum with memory. They said he tried to freelance for a while. A few small clients, some personal rebranding. But reputation travels faster than any resume. Word spread, subtle, polite whispers. Unreliable, unethical, too smooth to trust. In an industry built on image, he became invisible. And me. I didn't get a promotion. No parades, no corporate redemption arc. Just quiet nods in hallways, a few lingering handshakes from those who doubted me. My name was restored on the project board. Lead strategist, Eli Grant. Nothing more, nothing less. But that was enough. I rebuilt differently this time, not with allies who smiled too brightly, but with people who listened when I spoke. Maya now leads her own team. Ramon moved into client strategy, where honesty still counts for something. The interns, the ones who saw everything, still stop by my desk for advice. Not out of fear but respect. Sometimes, I still see Derek's reflection in the city, a flash of his kind of smile in a cafe window, a voice that sounds too familiar in a passing crowd. I wonder if he's still trying to talk his way out of the truth. I don't hate him anymore. Hate takes energy, and I'd rather build. One evening, I stood outside Lumen's headquarters, watching the skyline glow against the rain-slicked streets. The same view we used to dream about when we called ourselves a team. For a second, I almost missed him, the version of us that believed in loyalty, in partnership, in we. But illusions are like campaigns. They expire the moment the truth comes out. In the end, Derek didn't lose because I exposed him. He lost because he believed reputation was something you own, not something you earn. And that's the difference between people like him and people like me. I don't need to steal credit. My work speaks. His silence now. That's his legacy speaking back. As I turned to leave, the wind carried the city's hum like applause. Soft, distant, real. Reputation, I whispered to myself, isn't what people say about you. It's what still stands when they stop talking. I walked away, lighter, ready for whatever came next. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted? A coworker, a friend, a partner? How did you take your power back? Drop your story in the comments. I read every single one. And if you love stories where truth wins the long game, hit subscribe. There's always another #powerplay coming.